Here I will present our work on conversations with documents. My name is Maarten and this is joint work with Robert Sim, Elnaz Nouri, Fourney, Maarten de Rijke and Ryen. So to start off with a motivating example, imagine a person on their way to an important business meeting to prepare for a date with potential investors. The objective of the meeting is to finalize a document about their organization that can be shared with these potential investors. The person is co-editing the document and the last version has just been sent over email. The person wants to be optimally prepared for their meeting, so wants to go over the document once more, but they do not have direct access since they're driving. Fortunately, they have their personal voice assistant with them. So the person is likely to ask questions such as, does the document already mention the mission of our company? Or summarize what it says about our growth in the last 2 years? However, the person is less likely to ask factoid questions, such as, who is the CEO of our company? Given that they work for this organization, so they are expected to know this type of information. This type of assistance is what we call document-centered assistance. And interestingly enough, it has not seen the same type of progress as other areas of digital assistance, which is why we focus on it in this work. And as I already briefly mentioned, it's different from most existing QA tasks that mostly focus on these factoid types of questions, as document-centered assistance really aims at assisting a user while editing a document. And therefore, a user is not really expected to ask these factoid types of questions seeking for encyclopedic type of information. However, at this point, we also do not really know for sure what this type of document-centered assistance would really look like. And therefore, we divide our work into 3 parts. So the first stage is a survey, where we ask what kinds of features users would find helpful and what kinds of questions they would ask about the document. In the second step, we collect more data. So we collect more questions about documents and more answers. We use this data for the third step, the modeling step, where we run initial baseline experiments to model the document-centered QA task. And all this in the outline scenario. However, we make it a bit more general and we give participants a bit more information to work with. So starting off with the first stage, the survey, we had 23 participants who were all English-speaking, US-based, trained to do the task and paid at an hourly rate. So there was no incentive to rush responses. Now, we had quite a few questions for which we refer you to the paper, but here we just want to highlight a few. So here we ask participants to choose the 3 capabilities that they would find most useful in the outline scenario. And we see that summarizing parts of the documents, reading parts of the documents, navigating to parts of the documents, as well as answering general questions about the documents scored highest. In a later stage of our survey, we asked to participants to ask 5 questions to the voice assistant in this outline scenario. And we simulated this scenario by providing them with the email, and we added the introduction to the document in this email as a means to make participants able to ask informed questions, but to not give them full access to the document. So like this, we arrived at 2,000 questions. And we divided these questions into this hierarchy. In level 1, we see the document-centered questions, the factoid questions, mechanical questions, and other questions. And we give examples for these on the next slide. Because we're mostly interested in the document-centered questions, we divide them again into different categories, of which one is the closed-form questions, or the yes-no types of questions, such as, does the document contain information about X? And because we think that users do not really want to hear yes here, but they actually want to say here, yes, and this is the type of information, we also divide these types of questions again in the rest of the categories of level 2, which we call level 3. So to give some examples about the labels in level 1, these are verbatim examples given by the participants. So a document-centered question could be, does the document have specifications to the type of activity and sector improvement that will be offered? A factoid question is, what is the date of the festival? A mechanical question is, highlight capability workers. And there are also other questions. For example, read the email to me. So those don't really directly refer to the document. Then if we look at the distribution of questions, we can see, for example, on level 1, the document-centered questions really make the largest group of questions, indicating that it's important to be able to answer these types of questions. Now, in the second stage, we collect more data and we only glance over it quickly here, but please refer to the paper for more details. So in a similar scenario, we collect more questions for an additional 36 documents. And then for the total of 56 documents, 20 from the previous stage, we also collect answers for these questions. And this data set we call the DQA data set, or a document question answer. Like this, we get over 60,000 questions, and we have a nice distribution of open questions and closed form questions, as well as answerable questions and unanswerable questions. We use this data in the third step for modeling, and specifically we focus on passage ranking and answer selection. But for the sake of this presentation, here I want to dive deeper into the answer selection. For this, we fine-tuned BERT large in different types of settings. So in the first setting, we fine-tuned it and evaluated on only our DQA data set. But because our data set is not so large, we also experimented with adding larger data sets. So Squad 2.0 specifically, which is a question answering data set that is similar to ours in the sense that it also has unanswerable questions, but different from ours in the sense that it focuses on these factoid types of questions. We fine-tuned BERT on this and evaluated it on our DQA holdout set. Then in the third step or setting, we fine-tuned BERT on the combination of Squad and our data set, and again evaluated only on ours. And we also experiment with some query rewriting because we thought maybe we can make our questions in our DQA data set look a bit more like the questions in Squad, for example, by deleting common n-grams such as does the document. Now, if we look at the results for the F1 score and the exact match, we see that the setting where we fine-tune on Squad and our DQA data set and evaluate it only on the DQA data set performs best. We also see that query rewriting doesn't perform as well as we hoped, and we think that is because our query rewriting at this stage is still a bit too naive, and we hope to experiment with that in future work. What we can also see is that these scores are not yet close to the scores we know from the Squad leaderboards, indicating that this is a very interesting and new challenging task. So to wrap this all up, we can say from the first survey that there is a need to be able to answer document-centered questions. We collected this new DQA data set that includes these document-centered questions and their answers. We saw that the task is very challenging and has many practical applications, and that can inspire a lot of new research, what we're really excited about. In this stage, we saw that fine-tuning Squad 2.0 and DQA together performs best, but we're excited to try more. So thank you for now. I'm happy to answer any questions.